And welcome to the next lecture in our series. This is on the video switcher, and this corresponds with chapter 10 in our book. So I'm going to start out by taking you through a schematic diagram of a potential switcher that we might build. Okay, it's not what the real switcher looks like. That'll be later on in the lecture. Okay, but first, we want to build a switcher that is going to go to our recorder or to our transmitter. All right. And so what I've got here is the program bus. And this is a label. This is not a button. Okay, this is a label, but over here we've got all these different buttons. This is the black button, camera 1, camera 2, camera 3. Here's for clips. These are for pictures that are moving. Here's stills, our CG, and our color bars. All right. And if we want to go from camera 1 to take camera 2, we just go from here, click on this button, and then click on that. And then if we want to go to our clips, then we just click on that. And this allows only for takes or cuts, right? So it's a pretty limited switcher. So let's say we want to make dissolves between sources. So we go out and we build ourselves a switcher like this. And so we have program bus right here. And we duplicate the same buttons on a mix A and mix B bus. All right. And so let's say we are in camera 1 and we want to make a dissolve to camera 2. Okay, so what we want to do is actually go to the mix bus. So in setting up the mix bus, we have the program buses in camera 1. We'll take mix A and put that in camera 1, and mix B will be in camera 2. And then when we're ready to make our dissolve, we'll do this. We'll go hit the mix button. And now the mix button, since the fader bar is up here, would be right here in camera 1. And then we'll pull the fader bar back down and it'll go transition to camera 2. Well, that's okay. That's great. What if we wanted to preview that? You know, what if we wanted to preview that move before it went on the air so we could take a look and see if it looks all right? Well, then we'd have to do a preview bus down here and do the same thing. All right. The preview bus, we'd have to use the mix A and mix B and preview it down here and then program it in here to do it when we want to do it on the air. All right. You can see where this is going, right? Because now we're going to add the key bus. And so if we want a key bus, we'll have to have the key background. So maybe the key background for our weathercaster would be a still of the weather map. And then we'd have camera, let's say 3 for our weathercaster. All right. Of course, we need to preview it first, and then we need to get it on the air. I ran out of screen room here for our key button in this area, but we'd have to add some buttons over here for bringing in our key effects, right? So you could see that this is getting really, really large, and pretty soon we're going to have a really complicated mixer. All right. So we've come up with this multi-function mixer design. All right. And this is a schematic of how it looks, of how it works. Again, these are the labels back here. And we have our program bus. This is our program bus. But our program bus can also, and our preview bus down here, right? And our program and preview buses can also become mix A and mix B, right? Because they can double as that when we want to do a dissolve. So not only is this program, but this also becomes, when we use the dissolves, this becomes mix A and this becomes mix B, and then they flip flop when we've made our transition. And then if we are using our key bus, this program bus also becomes the key background. And then this is our key source. So this would be for the still here, and then we put the weathercaster here. And then we've added this thing called the transition area. I'll get to these 2 buttons on the bottom in a little bit. But this is our transition area, and we can decide what we want to do, whether we want to do dissolves or wipes or keys in this area. And so this is all part of our transition area. So to do a cut, what we can do, since this is mix AB, we can set camera 1 and then camera 2, and we can either cut between them right here, or we can use the cut button down here, right? And it will flop between the mix A and mix B. So if we had camera 1 here, camera 2 here, and used the cut button, right, then it would cut between the two, and camera 2 would end up here, and camera 1 would end up here. Now so that's what the cut button does. It frees our hand from hovering over this area. You know, we only have 2 hands, right? So what I like to do now, every video switcher technical director person is a little different in how they like to do things, but I like to hover my left hand over in this area so I can change things either in the preview bus or in the key bus and get them ready, and then use my right hand to affect the transitions. All right, so it frees us up a little bit to work it, you know, with both hands. So let's say we wanted dissolve. Here's how this works, is that we hit the background key. All right, and that delegates this for some sort of effect with our fader bar. And if we hit dissolve, that means it's going to make a dissolve, right? So we're going to dissolve between camera 1 and camera 2. The camera 1's in program, mix A. Camera 2 is in preview, mix B. And since we have background and dissolve selected, all we need to do is pull the fader bar, and it makes a nice dissolve. If we want to do a wipe, same sort of thing. We hit background so that mix A and mix B are engaged, but we hit the wipe key. And instead, from a dissolve from camera 1 to camera 2, when we hit the fader bar, it will make a wipe from camera 1 to camera 2. All right. And then a similar thing happens with the key. So what we do is we use the background and key, and it sets since program is the key background, so maybe we'll use the still as our background source, and we'll use camera 3 as our key source and key in the Weathercaster there. And we might set this up first and then go to our key bus, right? Or we can like magically bring them in, that sort of thing. All right. And so the auto, and then we've got this kind of thing down here. I said I was going to get to this, right? We can use the cut button to cut between different cameras, or we could use an auto button, which is an auto transition. So we could do what turns out to be is a very fast dissolve. And a lot of directors like to do that. And they set up how many frames it's going to take to make this particular auto transition. So instead of actually doing a cut, we use the auto transition button, and it makes a little softer kind of cut. All right, between the preview and program buses. So here we are to the reel switcher. Okay, this is our reel switcher that we have in the control room. Right, and right now it's gone to sleep, but here are some pictures out of our out of the owner's manual, and I'm going to make the owner's manual available on Canvas. All right, when we get to this section, I'll have it prominently displayed on Canvas, either in the module that corresponds with this, or I might also put this on the home page so that you can download or at least look at the owner's manual of the video switcher. Here are the different switcher areas in that program and preview, and the key is here. Here's our transition area. This is a programming area where we can program different multi-layer effects. On our switcher, it is down here, right? And this positioner area is actually up here on our switcher. Here's the keyer right here. Here's a place to do some programming. And then also here's the fade to black area. Let's go through these one at a time. Okay, so this is the program, preview, and key bus. Now you're going to notice on the documentation it says preset bus, because that's the way the engineers that built the Ross video switcher that we're using, that's what they called it, because it is a place to preset things. But since we use program and preview monitors, right, we've labeled it program and preview. And this is the way you're going to find it on most switchers in the United States. This is the way it's gonna look. All right, so we got the key bus up here, the program bus, the preview bus, and then the engineer, will set up what the sources are here, and this will light up the different sources, what they are. Then here's the transition area. This sits to the right of the buses, and this is where our fader bar is. Here's where we can hit whether we're going to do a background, or if we're going to set up a number of keys and go have multi-layer effects right here. And then we can set up for a dissolve or a wipe or some sort of crazy digital video effect that we set up in pre-production, so we can have some sort of kind of thing where, like, maybe we have a cube, and so instead of a wipe, the picture will kind of cube like that, and then a new picture comes up. Right, and then here's our auto transition button. It looks like it's set to 15 frames. Maybe we'd set it to a little bit more, I don't know. Here's our cut button, right? And roll clip is from the days when we had videotape. You had to do a little pre-roll because the videotape machine had to get up to speed. So before you cut to the source that you're going to do, you hit the roll clip, right? And it would roll the videotape machine, and then you would cut to VTR1 or VTR2 or whatever like that. By the way, this little display right here is really important, because sometimes you'll take the fader bar and you'll go all the way down, but you're not really all the way down. And if you look over here and you see that this display is lighted, like this is lighted up here, you'll see that it's lighted, then you realize that you're not all the way, you haven't made the full transition, and you got to bring that fader bar all the way down, and then the lights will go off. Okay, because that's the common thing that happens to us. We get stuck and we know, how come the picture doesn't look right? It's like, well, we haven't actually made the full transition yet. So when we're doing a cut or a dissolve, just notice that, like, let's say we're going to either cut or dissolve between two different sources, right? This is program and preview, or mix A and mix B, right? And so we're here on this camera, and we're going to go to this source right here, and either we cut by using the cut, or we do a dissolve and do it this way. Notice what happens here is that they flip-flop, right? And so this ends up in program. This was in the preview here, but now it ends up in program, and what was in program ends up in preview. So they just flip-flop. The sources just flip-flop when we use the transition area. And then that way it allows us not to have to, use two hands on that area. We can use one hand on one area and one hand on the other area. Here is the keyer area, and we can set up specific keys. We can select different things, different sources for key sources, right? And so when we select different key sources here, then we not only can key one source, but we can key multiple sources at a time. And we can bring our keys in either with a cut button or with an auto trans. That is the same frame rate as the auto trans that's been set up on the switcher for in our transition area. And here's our positioner. And that's really neat, because if you're going to do a wipe, let's say we're going to do a circle wipe, and you want the circle wipe to come out of the center, well, you hit this positioner right there. But let's say we want the circle wipe to come out of the corner of the screen and go, and go, I'm trying to do it like that. Well, then you use a positioner to position the circle wipe over to here, by the joystick right there. And then your wipe will go like that. Okay. And then this is a memory area. Let's say we want to set up some sort of fancy multi-layered effect. This is where you program it. And this is kind of like programming the computer. You use these little buttons to program it. This is definitely an Ed area. All right. Ed, right now, I'm recording this at the beginning of our quarter, and Ed's going to take like January and a little bit of February off. Hopefully by that time, he's going to be back in the studio with us, and he would love to show some people this area. All right, he would love to get into that with you. If not, then we're going to have to wait for Ed to pre-program this for us and pre-program it for our labs. And then here's the touch screen. hangs out up here, and the touch screen adds even more functionality to the mixer. And this is a place where, I mean, there's different pages of the screen, but the most useful to us is this page right here, where we can select different patterns for wipes. All right, so where's our circle wipe? Our circle wipe is 03 right there, and you just hit it on the touch screen and that you get that. But then if you want to do some other fancy wipe, here's a from the top, here's the heart wipe, here's the star wipe. So there's all sorts of other wipes that you can use. And then the multi-layer effects also can, the different kinds of multi-layer effects can also be chosen in this screen. And then finally in the chapter, the Zettel talks about APC, which is automated production control. And you're going to find this more and more in all sorts of studios. In fact, it's really taken over news production right now. And the way we run in our studio is that we have camera people, right? And we have graphics people, and we have audio control, and we have the video switcher, and they're all different positions. What the automated production control is designed for is to bring that all together, right? So that you can have one person controlling the whole system if you can. And so what they do in pre-production is they go through and pre-program a lot of the transitions that are going to happen. All right. And so instead of having a video switcher that they're switching, down here, they have these buttons right here. And these are just events. And so they go through the script and program each event. Right. And you're thinking there's a lot of events that have to happen. But if you think about it, like in a news production, like in your nightly news that's going to happen every day, at the local level, well, you can work off of a template that we're going to open this way with this logo and then go to this camera and go to that camera. So you work off a template, and then you can program things off of the template and just program events in here. And then we have faders for our audio control, and these have memory locations too. So we can use these flying faders that they will track what's going on these events. And then if we want to move the cameras around, again, we can program events with our cameras, like whether they're going to zoom, whether they're going to move around, that kind of thing. And we can pre-program them with the joystick, exactly what that move's going to look like. And then we go and hit the events there. So you have one person that can control a lot of what's going on in the studio. That is it for our video control section. All right, that's chapter 10 in our book. So go ahead and make sure you've read that, and then you can take the quiz.